Hello everyone, and thank you for joining our live Q&A webinar, Demystifying Indoor Mapping. In an emerging market with little to no industry standards, rapidly changing business requirements, and complex integrations, it's not surprising that people have a lot of technical indoor mapping questions that can't be answered by the internet. That's why we've put together a panel of experienced developers and indoor mapping experts to answer your questions. Today, we have Dan Titov, Jibestream's Technical Implementation Manager, Shane O'Sullivan, Jibestream's Senior Backend Developer, Dana Marciniak, Jibestream's Map Design Lead, and Aaron Wong, Jibestream's Senior Solutions Architect. And they're here to answer questions submitted by you. For everyone or anyone who's not familiar with Jibestream, we're an indoor mapping and location platform provider that specializes in merging business data with indoor maps. We've been working with enterprise organizations, providing them with the tools to create tailored map-enabled solutions that integrate with any third-party data and systems. With that, let's get started. The first question we have is for Dan, our Technical Implementation Manager. I'm interested in implementing Blue Dot or indoor positioning use cases. What should I expect? And part two, where does Jibestream come in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess the first part of it, to talk about a little bit about what Blue Dot is. It's important to realize that we have something like GPS signal when we're talking about outdoors, which was a sensor built into your phone as well that focuses solely on location. Whereas Bluetooth is typically created for transferring files or pairing your devices. So you have to keep in mind that when you're working with the Bluetooth signal, you need to do some triangulation, which can often be a challenge. Now, where does Jibestream fall into this? Is that we are sort of like the middle layer where a company will be doing the Bluetooth signal and pass us maybe a lat long or an XY, and then we'll massage that and place it onto one of our maps. For the end user to take.
Yeah, and one thing to note, the technology that Dan has pretty much brought up, which is BLE technology, is one form of technology that IPS, which is Indoor Positioning System, has. There are many others around. You can use passive RTLS, passive RFID, as well as Wi-Fi triangulation, ultrasound. So there are many that are available at your use, depending on your use case, your budget, what infrastructure you have available that can leverage them.
Great, thank you so much. Aaron, another question we were getting is about hardware. So what hardware is responsible for accuracy, and what's the maximum accuracy that can be achieved in a programmatic situation?
Now, that's a very interesting question because accuracy in hardware, they're not entirely synonymous. It's more based on the use case that you want to go for. Having the most accurate technology might not be appropriate depending on what your budget is and what your needs are. So sometimes going for something that I want the most accurate might not be the bang for your buck. It's better to kind of think of it this way. What is the most appropriate form of accuracy depending on the area that I need to use this in? Because every IPS technology has its benefits and its drawbacks. Some may be super accurate, but very expensive. Others may not be as accurate, but it is appropriate to use. And then other technology might have drawbacks in the fact that it can't pass through glass or bodies of water or even steel beams. So that can disrupt the signals as well. And these are the things that you need to take into account when choosing your IPS provider.
Great. Now, you probably are seeing a lot out there about Apple indoor mapping and indoor positioning. This question is about Apple. How much success have people had using Apple's indoor positioning to place users on indoor maps?
Now, Apple's indoor positioning technology, which is leveraging core location, is not fully ready yet. This is because the way that it works is that it is leaning on IMDF, which is Apple's indoor mapping data format, and that is still in beta. Because that is still in beta, indoor positioning using Apple technology is not fully ready to be used. Until they finish that and is ready for production, then indoor positioning systems using Apple technology will be ready. But I know that they are doing a lot of aggressive R&D around it, and we are as well, so that we can be ready when they are.
Yeah, just to add to what Aaron mentioned there. So, like you said, IMDF is still in a beta phase. So the work that we're doing on it right now is mostly R&D work. So we've built some projects around converting IMDF into Jibestream data and going from Jibestream data into IMDF. So we've had some success around converting a handful of our client venues. So yeah, we're pretty excited about the potential in the future with it.
Wonderful. This question is about wayfinding and asset tracking. Can wayfinding and asset tracking still be performed when there's limited or no connectivity? And are you solely reliant on what beacons are giving you?
Now, indoor positioning and RTL technology, not all of them do require network connectivity. Some of them do support something called dead reckoning, which is you don't need network connectivity and it will measure all of the signals around. But not all of them support that. And for that, because not all of them support that, you really need to take this into account when choosing your IPS provider. If this is a requirement, then make sure that you are going to choose an IPS provider that supports that.
And say you are not doing Blue Dot, how does that work?
Well, Blue Dot navigation does require indoor positioning, but wayfinding does not. So if you need to use our technology, our SDKs within, let's say, a kiosk setting that you already know the reference of where a user is coming from, then you can still draw out the path from where they are to where they're going. Because our SDKs support caching, as soon as the maps are loaded, you don't need network connectivity to load again.
Great. So we're going to keep going along those lines, talking about mapping. So a lot of clients ask, when we have an existing map, can we use this and can it work with Jibestream?
Yeah, so I think I'll take that one. So that's a great question. Oftentimes people come to us and they say, I have this map, can you just, use that? And the answer is yes, the short answer is yes. And the longer answer is really just understanding what that existing map is. So we like to look at that as, categorizing maps into one of two categories, static maps and dynamic maps. A static map example might be in a static display at a retail mall when you go and you're looking up all the store locations. Another example of a static map might be if you're going to a hospital and they literally hand you a piece of paper showing a map of the entire facility with all that information about the facility on it, and they point you into the direction that you need to go. So we can work with inputs like that, but what we often recommend is maybe using that as an inspiration, because static maps, they're trying to display all of that information using one image. And with Jibestream, we create dynamic maps. We allow you to do so much more than just, display labels. So, we organize our maps into shapes and layers, and what that allows developers and app developers to create is a custom solution around the interactions with the map. So you can hide and show things dynamically. You can render labels depending on the zoom level. You can do a number of things where you're really controlling that experience for your users.
So essentially, you're saying you can use your existing map. If you're looking to add additional functionality,
yeah,
you would want to have your maps digitized using the Jibestream.
Exactly.
Great. And what file formats do you need for a map?
So we work primarily with DWG, which is a CAD-readable format, and that's a vector-based file. And so we're not limited to that. Although our platform basic input is an SVG, so a scalable vector graphic, we can just work with anything that you have as a starting point, because oftentimes people are funneling multiple streams of information into one sort of dynamic map. So we will take, a site plan that's in, vector format. We'll take a DWG file that might be a lease plan, and we'll combine all of those pieces of information together to create your custom map.
Now, we get all the time the opposite from our clients. So we don't have an existing map. Where do we begin?
It's a great question. We say, start with the floor plan of your facility. So you're mapping that interior space. You want to see, the walls, the circulation spaces, the storage spaces, where the elevator shafts, the stairwells are, and we're really just trying to understand that base building information. And the reason that we use that as a starting point for the map is that, we're hoping that maybe the files that were used to even build the building in the first place are the most accurate set of information for that facility. So that's a great starting point when you're doing things like Blue Dot and really accurate use cases.
So if someone doesn't know what exactly they need, how can they go about getting that process started?
That's a good question. So we often start out by asking the question of, well, what are your goals? What are your technical goals? Are you integrating with another system and you want to visualize certain data in a specific way on your space? And so we drive the conversation around the use case of what you're trying to achieve and breaking that down into, okay, is that information represented in your floor plan? So for example, maybe you might be in a corporate office and your use case might be to either navigate to individual employee desks, or maybe you want to show all of the available hot desking locations. So the question we would then ask is, okay, can I see desks in your floor plan? And really having that, that furniture layout is going to allow you to do and achieve those use cases.
Thanks, Dana. We're going to switch gears, talk a little bit about infrastructure. Dan, maybe you can get us started on this question. I'm looking for a clear understanding of what options are available when dealing with existing infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I focus on at Jibestream is enabling or helping sort of hook up the different systems that people have, because right now there's a huge variety of existing infrastructure that companies want to involve the mapping portion or add the mapping portion into. There are specific things that we built into the platform already that help us do that. Actually, I think Shane, you might be a better person to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So when we're dealing with existing infrastructure, the most common use case we have for customers is client integration. So this usually involves doing an initial data dump from your system to ours, and then some periodic data syncs afterwards. So there's a couple of things worth mentioning in this area. The first being that you're going to be using our fairly robust set of APIs, so you can do all your creates, your reads, your updates, your deletes for all your data. We have on all of our data objects a field we call external ID, which is basically a shared identifier between our system and yours. That's going to make it really easy to recognize which data on your system corresponds to which data on our system. The last part to mention as well is that we have some really useful APIs around kind of bulk operations. So you can do your reads, your creates, your updates in a bulk fashion, which is going to be saving you a lot of time for large data samples.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add to that and just to emphasize how important something like an external ID is or bulk add, because at the end of the day, most systems are all going to have one data table on one end, and you're going to have another data table on another end. And what you really need to do is you just need to make sure that the two can communicate and sync, so that you don't have to press the save button in 100 different places and just do it from one one-stop shop, so to speak.
Great. So, I mean, we hear all the time, being able to connect with different systems out there. So because Jibestream is an open and agnostic platform, essentially you can integrate with anything using our APIs. Mm-hmm. Great. Aaron, can you talk a little bit about analytics and reporting? How do our clients use raw data and analytics software, maybe like Tableau, to visualize data, and what can be visualized?
Now, what is offered by Jibestream in terms of analytics is pretty much two products. We are coming out with our own analytics. It's going to be built into our CMS that will be released soon. And we also have something called an analytics plugin. Now, what a plugin is, it's a mini SDK extension to our main SDK product. This will allow you to have extended functionality without having to write more code. And what the analytics plugin does specifically is that it will pipe through all interaction data that's happening on the map and feed it to you. What you want to do with that data is entirely up to you, whether you want to pass it to Tableau or maybe Power BI, and even use that with our own JavaScript Web SDK as a UI for Power BI. You can do that, or even Google Analytics. Other things you can do as well with data, especially raw data, is that you can put that into a machine learning algorithm and even find statistical analysis using this data as well. There's many things that you can do with it.
Yeah, actually my personal favorite is the Google Analytics portion, because I try to just use it sort of on my personal time, and it's so easy because there's just a few lines of code in order to get it to run, and all you have to do is create an object, pass in the type of event that you want to record, click event, maybe the data that you want to restore, and then send it through the Google Analytics SDK over to your dashboard, and automatically you have all this visualized data, just within minutes, really.
Great. Now, this next question is something that we hear all the time these days. People are asking about indoor to outdoor wayfinding. How does it work? Aaron, why don't you go with this one?
Now, indoor to outdoor wayfinding, how that works is that within the Jibestream platform, we support a format called GeoJSON. And this allows you to grab our maps and have latitude, longitude values so that you can draw all the shapes and polygons in our indoor maps on an outdoor map. So think of it as superimposing our indoor maps on top of Google Maps at the exact position where that facility is supposed to be at. That's essentially what is happening with indoor-outdoor. And when it comes to wayfinding on all that interactions, you can wayfind using, let's say, for example, Google Maps wayfinding algorithm from the user's door to the front entrance, and then take our wayfinding algorithm and go the rest of the way to, let's say, the meeting room within the indoor facility.
Great. This next question, maybe Shane, you can take a jump at. How does your platform interact with Microsoft Digital Twins? And more specifically to those who aren't familiar, can you give us a quick summary of what exactly Digital Twins is?
Yeah, I guess so. Azure Digital Twins is basically Microsoft's IoT solution for spatial technology. And this kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier about client integrations. So how you would integrate our system with theirs, again, is going to be a client integration to combine their data system with ours. And then on top of that, you can basically build whatever you want to get the solution you need.
Great. How would one go about building a POC or a proof of concept without engaging the full cost of a deployment?
Now, probably the easiest way to build out a POC without the full cost is to use our Jibestream reference app. We built this application that's for you to, once you digitize the map within our system and it's in our CMS, you put in the client credentials into this application and you can see it running on an iOS or an Android application. This has all the functionalities from wayfinding from point A to point B, and supports all the other features such as zones and even room booking if you have that supported with Office 365.
Yeah, what's great about that is that we've had a number of people come through our door just wanting to do exactly that, is get an understanding of how our platform works, and they've been successfully able to use this mobile reference application and, hook it up to what would be their venue and have their maps display, be able to show that functionality to their internal stakeholders. And then from there, it's really much a tool to get that buy-in in order to do a larger project or a larger rollout. So it's really enabled a lot of our clients to really go farther.
Yeah.
Wonderful. This next question is great. It's about Jibestream CMS, and clients are asking, can users make changes to their maps?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can answer that one. So we have this web, tool called Map Editor, and what it allows you to do is just to go into the CMS and edit the actual structural polygons of an SVG. So you're actually modifying data directly inside the web portal, and then once you just hit publish, the map is saved, and then all those changes are propagated across all the APIs. GeoJSON gets auto-generated. So it's a way to really quickly make adjustments to obviously the shapes of your building that are going to be changing quite often. So.
And what's also great about the content management system is that we have the ability, or we're giving the ability for you to go into, the map that you've just edited in Map Editor, and you can export that map into a number of different file types. So it might be a PDF, it might be a portable network graphic, an SVG even, but we also allow a DXF, which is a CAD-friendly format. And the value there is that, you've put your resources into maintaining this map, and you are, ensuring that it's up to date and making updates along the way as the space changes. And now you can share that information with other teams in your organization. So if you're in retail, it might be a leasing team, facilities management. So really, you get the value of these multiple uses of this map from sort of one change or one feature.
So this map export utility that you're talking about, the ability to take your maps out of the system, what's unique about it can you tell us a little bit about why it's a bit different than some of the other tools on the market?
Yeah, it's definitely a differentiator for us. The big one being the DXF download.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me personally, I would say that I'm afraid of all the, AutoCAD and Illustrator. There's a huge learning curve to those tools. So when the team here began building the map editor, that was the first thing that I was really excited about, that because it's something that I didn't have to no longer know how to do, is go into an Illustrator to open a file to look at any of the layer names. Now I was able to do it just right from the web portal. So yeah, that's definitely a huge plus. And
so those modifications that you're making, they're included in the export. It's not just living in the Jibestream system.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so switching again, going back to more infrastructure technology, Dan, can you tell us a little bit about what you need from a hardware standpoint?
Right. So from a hardware perspective, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. Is it from the back end or the front end? So I would like to split it up that way. Now we are a SaaS platform, so we'll be doing all of your hosting for the the CMS as well as the data. However, you can hook that up. You can't hook it up through the APIs to anywhere else you want to store it. And when it comes to the front end, any typical all your browsers, we have an SDK for the web as well as Android and iOS. So we're supporting everything across the board on that side of things.
And Shane, can you talk to us a little bit about security standards?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing to mention at Jibestream is that all of our servers are deployed and secured on Azure's cloud platform. On top of that, all of our endpoints are secured using OAuth 2. So what's going to happen in a usual use case is that you're going to send in your client credentials to our authorization server, and you're going to get back an encrypted JWT token. This JWT token is going to have your user roles encrypted inside. So when you go to use one of our endpoints, you're only going to be allowed to use the endpoints that token has the roles and responsibilities for. So for example, if you're one of our SDK users, you're only going to be able to make a call to one of our SDK read endpoints. And if, let's say, you're one of the admins for your customer, you're going to have a bit more roles. So you're going to be able to create, a read, and update, a delete, that kind of thing.
Thanks, Shane. So on the Jibestream website and throughout a lot of our material, we talk about something called map profiles. The question here is, what exactly is map profiles? When would I use it, and why would I want it?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that. So the way that map profiles, or I guess the goal that was achieved, or we were trying to resolve, I guess, is that you always want to have one source of truth, one set of data for maybe different types of users to then interact with. So what we did is we have a feature called Map Profiles that allows you to split up that data and say, okay, maybe the maintenance crew or the maintenance worker of a specific facility will have only access to specific layers and to specific data within the app. Whereas the end user that might be a client or maybe somebody visiting the building will still be accessing the same application, but based on their usability or their use case, they're going to be able to only see the data that is served to them. So it's a way to take the same source of truth and split up to ingest it in different ways.
So they are essentially permission-based profiles, so I can see based on what group I belong to. So you can have an application with a single set of maps, and it can show, let's say I'm in an office environment, employees, one set of maps and layers, security staff, different areas, and restricted access and such.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's great about that is that, it removes the confusion when you have multiple groups managing different maps. You're consolidating all that information, and you're sort of pushing that single source of truth out to specified users.
Thanks, Dan and Dana. Dan, this next question is probably best for you. If I wanted to track where assets, which can be people, objects, equipment, whatever, if I wanted to track where they are or how long they're spending in a room, an area, a designated space, is this possible? How can that be done?
Yeah, so from a perspective of how you're going to access the location, off the bat, is we have a feature called geofences, meaning that you can select an area on a map that you can record when a user enters it, and then, if you want to put a duration, or if you want to just see how long a user spends in there or when they leave, then you're going to set another trigger for that portion. And then, after that, it all depends on where. If you want to put a geofence that's around that, it's even bigger. You can also do that and say, hey, if this person is now exiting, but they're still within the vicinity, you can have another trigger go off for that as well.
Okay. This question is similar to what we had talked about before with indoor to outdoor, but someone's looking to get more information about integration with Google Maps and Jibestream Maps for things like rideshare programs, guest transportation, whether it's at airports or from the parking lot of a hospital. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as we alluded to before, we do support a format called GeoJSON that can and allow you to superimpose an indoor map on an outdoor map. Now, in terms of the use cases and scenarios for ride sharing, it's pretty much up to what you want to build and what you want to do with it. What Jibestream allows you to do is an extra dimension of another map. We've been so used to the whole outdoor scenario of how cars travel from in and out from one street to another, one location to another, but then we're also giving a new paradigm to allow you to travel from the street to the indoors of, let's say, a clinic and a hospital. So that kind of brings up a whole new way of thinking. It's like, okay, how do we navigate users from someplace that's outside to now inside? And that brings up a whole new world of use cases that we're excited to see.
I actually wanted to add to that. An interesting point is that currently where we stand is that we don't necessarily need to, we're agnostic when it comes to what kind of positioning services you're using. So it could be, as I mentioned, Bluetooth, which is kind of like the golden standard today, but there are so many different other technologies. So if tomorrow the technology changes, you can always just switch it over and have, whatever X and Y or lat long you're getting, you just plot it on this map with any type of location service that comes up tomorrow or, in the future. So.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I want to thank Dan, Shane, Dina, Aaron for being with us today. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions, and thank you everyone for actually joining us today. We at Jibestream would like to offer everyone a free discovery workshop. Now, when you're getting started on a journey like this, there's a lot of different things to figure out. No commitment, whether we work with you or not. We'd be happy to help you build a solid set of requirements so you're ready to go out to the marketplace. You can get this by emailing us at info@jibestream.com. Our team is looking forward to talking with you about your unique needs, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.